Welcome, everyone. In today's explainer, we're going to conduct a university-level deep dive, a micro-lecture, if you will, on a single, fundamental Mandarin question. Now, it might seem simple on the surface, but this phrase is actually a key that unlocks real, everyday conversations. We're going to go far beyond a simple translation and really dissect it, layer by layer.
So, here's our roadmap for today's lecture. First, we'll introduce the central question we'll be analyzing. Then, we're going to deconstruct its vocabulary, piece by piece. After that, we'll look at how to assemble the grammar. Then we'll focus on perfecting the pronunciation, which is crucial. And finally, we'll explore the cultural context, which is just as important as the words themselves.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the central question. You know, if you really want to connect with people in any language, you have to get past the basic greetings. You need to be able to ask about real life, about their daily routines, and that's exactly the scene we're setting here.
So, I want you to imagine this. You've met a new classmate, maybe a new friend, and you want to move the conversation forward. You want to ask about their day. How do you actually form that question in Mandarin? This is more than just a vocabulary quiz. It's about learning how to build a bridge from being a polite stranger to becoming a real friend.
And here it is. This is our specimen for today's deep dive. Let's say it together. 你几点起床? One more time. 你几点起床? This very simple, very common question, what time do you get up, is the key we are going to use to unlock a much deeper understanding of how Mandarin really works. So, let's put it under the microscope.
Okay, on to section 2, deconstructing the vocabulary. Just like a biologist carefully studies a specimen cell by cell, we're going to place this sentence under our own linguistic microscope, because to truly master the phrase, you have to first master its individual components, its building blocks.
Our first building block is probably the one you know best, ni, pronounced ni. It has that classic falling then rising third tone. This, of course, is the singular you. It's the subject of our sentence. It's the person we're talking to. It's simple, it's direct, and it is absolutely foundational to pretty much any conversation you're ever going to have.
Next up, we have ji, pronounced ji. Now, this is a really fascinating character. It's a question word that means how many, but, and this is the important part, it has a specific nuance. You only use it when you expect the answer to be a relatively small number, usually under, say, 10 or 12. This makes it absolutely perfect for asking the time, right? You would never use ji to ask how many people live in the city, but it is precisely the right word for asking what hour is it. Notice it also has that dipping third tone, ji.
And next we have dian. Now the literal meaning of this character is a point or a dot. And this is a perfect example of the beautiful logic built right into the Mandarin language. When we ask about time, what are we really asking about? We're asking about a specific point on the face of a clock. So it makes perfect sense that dian functions as the measure word for the hour, essentially meaning a clock. Put them together and ji dian literally means how many points, or more naturally, what time.
And finally, we have our action, qi shuang, qi shuang. This is a fantastic example of what's called a verb-object phrase, where two individual characters merge to create one precise action. Let's break it down. The first character, qi, means to rise or to get up. The second character, chuang, means bed. So quite literally, qi chuang means to rise from the bed. It's so logical, isn't it? It's incredibly descriptive. You're not just waking up in an abstract sense, you are performing the very specific action of getting up out of your bed.
So, now that we understand each of the individual pieces, we can move on to section 3, assembling the grammar. This is where we examine the elegant and, you'll find, refreshingly straightforward logic that governs how these words combine to form a perfect question.
And the grammar here is just beautifully simple. It follows a very clear, very direct logic. Subject, then your question phrase, and then your verb. So, we have ni, you, plus jidian, what time, plus qi chuang, get up. Notice what's missing compared to English. There's no complex inversion, no shuffling words around. We don't need a helper word like do. You simply state who you're talking about, what you want to know, and the action involved. It's an incredibly efficient structure.
Okay, so we've got the words, we've got the grammar, but without the right pronunciation, the meaning of a sentence in Mandarin can be completely lost, or even become something else entirely. This brings us to a critical step, section 4, perfecting the pronunciation. And I cannot stress this enough. In Mandarin, tones are not optional. They are as fundamental to a word's meaning as its vowels and consonants.
So getting the tones right here is absolutely crucial. A very common mistake for learners is to pronounce qi, qi, with a sharp falling fourth tone, making it sound like this. qi. But if you say 你几点起床, you're actually asking something like, what time do you get angry? Because qi means air or anger. Listen very closely to the difference. The incorrect fourth tone is sharp, qi. The correct third tone has that little dip in the middle, qi. That tiny change in pitch makes the difference between a perfectly normal question and a very, very strange one.
Now for a fantastic pro tip. There's a rule in Mandarin called tone sandy, and its whole purpose is to make the language flow more smoothly. Take a look at our first two words, ni and ji. They are both third tones. Now trying to say two of those dipping tones back to back is a little clunky. You can feel it. Ni, ji. So the rule is quite simple. When you have two third tones in a row, the first one changes into a rising second tone. So instead of that clunky ni, ji, it becomes a much smoother ni, ji. Listen to how it sounds in the full phrase again. 你几点起床? See how much better that flows? That's exactly how a native speaker would say it.
So at this point, we've mastered the language of this phrase. But to achieve true fluency, we have to understand the culture behind the language. This brings us to our final and perhaps most important section, the cultural context. You see, knowing what to say is only half the battle. You also have to know when, where, and crucially, to whom it's appropriate to say it.
And this is so important if you're going to use your Mandarin in the real world. With your peers, friends, classmates, people on your level, asking this question is perfectly fine. In fact, it's great. It shows friendly interest in their life. But you need to be cautious with a brand new acquaintance. It might come across as a little too direct or personal right off the bat. And here is the crucial one. You would almost certainly avoid asking this question to a superior, like your boss, a manager, or an elder professor. In cultures that place a high value on social hierarchy and respect, asking a superior about their personal schedule can be seen as overstepping your bounds. It implies a level of familiarity that you just don't have. It's not about them being secretive. It's about showing the proper deference and respect for their position. So let's just step back and think about what we've accomplished here. We took one seemingly simple question and used it as a key to explore vocabulary, grammar, phonetics, and even deep-seated cultural etiquette. What this really proves is that every single phrase you learn is more than just words. It's a window. It opens up a view into not just a language, but into an entire culture and a different way of seeing and interacting with the world.
And that brings our deep dive to a close. We have thoroughly dismantled and reassembled this question. So I'll leave you with one final thought to carry you forward. You now know how to ask it correctly, how to pronounce it naturally, and how to use it respectfully. So, the next step on your learning journey is this. How would you answer it?